Welcome to Bitcoin on Point, where I break down the market in real time and emotion free. In this video, we're going to break down why the monthly time frame is giving us major warning signs, what we must do on the weekly in order to invalidate such decline. On the daily, we have two scenarios for Bitcoin in the short term, and there are also some trade setups that I would like to discuss with you throughout the video. So do stay tuned. This is not one to miss. Now, before we go into the charts, let's look at what's happening globally, because a Binance founder CZ has predicted Bitcoin will reach between $300,000 and $500,000 this year. Now, whether Bitcoin actually hits that exact number or not is irrelevant. What actually matters is the conviction coming from the biggest players in the space. Now, at the same time, China just silently injected 740 billion yen into the market this week. This marks the biggest liquidity injection this year. So liquidity somehow always finds its way back into risk assets, right? So when global money supply expands, crypto always seems to benefit. But this is where it gets even more interesting. Elon Musk's X just announced that it will launch an in-app Bitcoin and crypto trading service. This is access to 1 billion users. So it isn't just adoption. This is friction removal at scale. So whilst price is consolidating back down at key levels, liquidity is increasing, adoption is expanding, and big players are forecasting 6 figures this year for Bitcoin. So this is how major expansion actually begins, right? Not necessarily when everybody feels uncomfortable with the price, but when structure and the macro quietly align at the same time. Now, with the macro wrapped up, let's dive into the charts. And we're going to start with Bitcoin on the monthly time frame. And this is a very important chart to analyze, right? Because statistically, based on previous data, whenever Bitcoin has tapped out on this ascending trend line, it has normally marked the signal of bear markets. We've seen an 84% correction, a 77% correction. And this time around, if we are to revisit the ascending support line that we hold during these bear market corrections, could we potentially see a 70% drawdown? Now, this would bring Bitcoin back down to the target we discussed yesterday at around $29,000. And it sounds pretty crazy, but if we zoom into the weekly, there are many ways to negate this. And at this moment in time, Bitcoin is sitting back down on a massive weekly bullish order block. And this order block sits at our current low at around 60K, right? So it ranges between 60 to 64K. Now, what I'm actually looking at here for Bitcoin, other than, well, evidently stating, just before we get into it, we have seen major demand from this area, which in the past did lead Bitcoin to new all-time highs. So being back down at this demand is a major signal. It signifies that buyers have stepped back in the past. So there is memory here on the chart, right? So if Bitcoin can defend 64K, then we're likely to see a rally back up towards sort of 80K, right? This was a previous level of support in November that Bitcoin lost. And since it actually lost that level of support, it hasn't had a rally back up to this level to meet it as resistance for a potential retest. At that point, this is where it will be important, because if Bitcoin does get it and confirm it as support, this is where we could continue higher and potentially have marked the local low for this correction. However, if Bitcoin rejects at that point and continues to the downside, then there is deeper liquidity below waiting at around 50K, which is the wick lows from July of 2024, I believe, August 2024. So regardless of what happens, these are the two major scenarios I'm looking for. However, the weekly bullish order block is the major defense on this time frame. Now, with that in mind, guys, let's take a look at the profits precision dashboard, because we have a 6 to 7% profit on our trades. We've taken 4 trades in total so far with a 100% win rate. Every execution, the tracking of this challenge, which is aiming to go from $10,000 to $100,000, is tracked live on this Profits Precision dashboard. All our trades are monitored here in real time, so you can see everything with clear transparency, and all my trade setups, the execution is shared live in my free Telegram. The links for everything are in the description. Now, with that in mind, let's look at Bitcoin on the daily time frame. Now, we've stated in the past that roughly around 92K is a major level of resistance. We had previous levels of rejection in the past, and Bitcoin did have a fake out above, but it initially crept back down and lost this black line of ascending support. Now, since doing so, it did create a bearish order block, and we've tapped back down into sort of 63K at the moment. And there's two scenarios from actually breaking down this level of we was holding that I'm now looking for. Both of them include a potential rally back up towards sort of 88K or sort of 86 to 88K, which is the bearish order block that we actually created on the decline. And scenario one would be valid only if Bitcoin takes out 70K. Right? On the lower time frames, 70K is a major level of resistance at the moment, right? So if Bitcoin can claim 70K, then scenario one that I'm looking at here is a rally straight back into the bearish order block. So if we claim 70K, backtest it and hold it as support here and turn it into support instead of resistance, this is the scenario I'm looking for, where we could see a rally up to sort of 86K sooner than we expect. Failing that, scenario two is where Bitcoin would reject at 70K, which we're kind of sitting at now, come back down for a higher low support at around 63K, build some sort of base here, and then look for a rally up to that bearish order block. So there are two potential scenarios. Clear 70K, the runway is clear for this retest into the bearish OB. However, if we reject 70K, simply look for a higher low in the low 60K area before building a base and pushing up to the bearish order block. So that's what I'm looking at here for Bitcoin on the daily time frame. Now, a quick trading challenge update. We have taken 4 trades. We're at $10,678, which is 6 to 7% in profit. I do all my trades on the week's exchange. They're great for liquidity and for the setup execution, and everything is shared live in my Telegram for the execution. It's all free. The links are in the description. Head over, because you're missing out if not, right? The trade setups are all there for you. Now, with that in mind, let's actually look at our trade, a pump USDT for our trade setup. We had a strong area of support where pump retested in the last couple of days, and since then it's seen a nice rally, right? So what I'm actually looking for here, this is a trade setup. We actually haven't executed it yet. What I'm looking for is a potential retracement back down towards this yellow support. And if that happens, I do have an entry sitting roughly at 0.002, where we could see a retest up to these TP1 and TP2 targets, right? These were areas in the past which were major resistance, and this is why these are our target areas. So if we do get the formation where we do see a pullback into this higher low support territory, right, where we could essentially start forming some sort of higher low ascending support, then this is where I'm looking for the entry. If we do start building a support and we come back into this territory, we'll execute. We have TP1 at 0.0022 and TP2 at 0.0025. So we're simply waiting for this to unfold. If it does, we are planning to capture the opportunity. Now, we also have a trade that's currently active, and this is our Ethereum to our setup. And at this moment in time, this setup is moving from the weekly order block. Both of our positions are currently active. We had an entry at $2,042 and an entry roughly at $1,959, and we're seeing a great increase at this moment in time. So I did say yesterday that we potentially could exit some of our position roughly at $2,100, because this is a major supply in the past and a key level of resistance, so it wouldn't be too unwise to take something off of the board. However, this is a very positive reaction, and if we do reclaim the 2.1k to 2.2k area, then we could fulfill our whole position and target at $2,400. So very interesting at this moment in time. We do have 1% of our capital deployed, so let's see how it turns out. So far, everything looks cushy. So if you want to keep up with everything, guys, Profit's Precision Dashboard is to monitor everything that's going on around the execution. Telegram is where the execution actually lives, and Weeks Exchange is for the fulfillment of the trades. I hope you've enjoyed today's content. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next update.